right, welcome back. Very excited about today's episode. Yes, I know we're focusing on the heroes today, but I still like this helmet, and I think it's on point for the segment. This is going to be a challenge. There are a ton of characters, as you can see in front of me, that were in the Toy Biz Uncanny X-Men Mutant Superheroes line that ran from 1990 to 1994. Absolutely a ton. So we're going to try to get through them. There's a lot of variants, and there are a lot of characters of different versions of the character. So I just want to make sure we cover all those really quick. So we're going to be moving through this. And then there's a couple from the X-Force line that were on the show, but they are not part of the Uncanny X-Men line. They're part of the X-Force line. So I just want to highlight them. There's only a few, so it should be really quick to get through those. But we're going to be focusing on the main line here, and there's going to be a lot, so we're going to get right into it. Well, space is at an absolute premium here, so I'm going to try to fit as much as I can in this little area. We're going to start with Professor X since it's his X-Men. I don't have the card back for him, but basically you can see here he's in his chair. It's only really his upper torso that is here. The other piece is a solid piece here for the chair. These sides open up and they have these little laser guns in them. I don't think they come out. They move a little bit. I've never been able to get them to come out. They pivot a little bit, but he just has these kind of panels and laser guns and computers in the side. And that's really it. He could turn his head. It's got articulation in the arms. Come to me, my X-Men. Whatever you want to do. He's got that little hover part here, and it's all kind of hollow. But it was basically just this, which is pretty close to his on-screen look for the animated series. Coming up next, we're going to have Morph, who has made a return in the X-Men 97 series as well. And Morph here, you can see, is this shapeshifter. And this shapeshifter is going to have a whole bunch of heads. So in addition to his, Morph head, he's got a creepy Morph head for when he came back in the subsequent episode, after we found out he was still alive. And then he's going to have a Cyclops head and a Wolverine head. So he could be a whole bunch of different guys. So he actually kind of really looks like Wolverine version 3 with this body, which we'll be getting to later. But this was Morph. No accessory other than the heads, which I found kind of weird because you'll notice a trend here where a lot of characters get guns, and the only one that actually used a gun was Morph, and he doesn't come with a gun. So totally weird that that was sort of the decision there to not include the gun with him, but at any rate. Next up, we're going to have Archangel. Now, Archangel came with two versions. The first version, the earliest rendition, I think it was 91, was this version here, where he had the white wings, and basically the wings flapped, and then you had these missiles where you could kind of like hit it with your finger and they would shoot out from the top here. His little, they weren't missiles, I guess they were the tips of the wings or something he would shoot, but that was basically it. And the second version looks closer to what we saw on the screen, and that is the metallic sort of wings where they're silver. Now I guess these are supposed to be the feather wings, and these are supposed to be the metallic wings, but that's just the difference between the two. So these two versions, they cost the same. They came out subsequently, I think just about a year apart, but those are the two versions of Archangel that you could get from the Uncanny X-Men line. Next up, we have one of the few female characters, and it's going to be Rogue. Now I say few because they never did a Jean Grey. I know they did a Phoenix, so we'll get to that. And they never did Jubilee, which made no sense because they were like really core characters. But they did Rogue, and Rogue is pretty cool, but her only real ability here is she has this this uppercut, which you could sort of bring down, lock, and then push the button, and she'll do her uppercut, and that's really it. That is the action feature to this character. The head doesn't pivot. It has her hair, but not a great likeness. I mean, this is back in the early 90s, so cut her some slack. But that was Rogue, one of the few female characters you can get in the line. After that, we're going to be taking, of course, we can't look at Rogue unless we look at Gambit, who took on quite a significant role in the most recent series. And, you can see him here. They captured his jacket at the time, which I think is the one that they had made for Punisher and the Marvel Superheroes line that was preceding this. And we'll compare that when we get to those in November. Yes, we are going to be looking at the Marvel Superheroes line as well from that classic time period. Really hard to get this staff into his hand, as I recall. But yeah, it slides in here, and he has his signature staff. He doesn't have his eyes aren't purple or anything like that. He doesn't have any kind of card throwing ability, but he does do, let's see if we get him to do it. Oh, I couldn't get it there, but he does do this. He has a kick. That's it. He has a kick ability. Power kick action, as it says here. There we go. That is his ability that came with the figure. And, you know, because of this weird, you know, I don't know what this is made out of, some thin plastic jacket, he has very limited range, but a great accurate Gambit look to the show. So I kind of appreciated that aspect of the design. After that, we'll keep it rolling. We have Kurt Wagner, and that's going to be the Nightcrawler. Now, Nightcrawler just included a suction capability and this little sword, of course, because, you know, I don't recall him, but he has a sword. So he could just kind of suction cup onto walls between his hand and his knee here. I don't know if these have seen better days, but that way he could hang up onto the walls. He can't, of course, he can't do his bamf and teleport around, but he can suction cup onto the wall and look pretty cool. I mean, it was a nice design for the figure. He has his tail there. I think it had a wire in it so you could pose it. I don't like pushing these characters to their limits because they're so old. But yeah, I mean, not a bad design for the character at the time. And you see the suction cup also coming out of the Marvel Superheroes line. Spider-Man had those, the earliest version of Spider-Man. We'll be checking that out as well. So after Nightcrawler, I want to add Colossus to the Uncanny X-Men line here. Colossus had a very weird design to him. I mean, the character himself, cool, it's Colossus, but he had very limited abilities here because what they wanted to make him do was power lift. So they gave him this large, you know, barbell here with the weights on it, but you know, I don't get it. Like, this is it. He could do some reps. Like, you can't punch or anything. He's kind of stuck in this mode of just lifting his hands up. So very limited for what you could do with the character. So disappointed in that aspect that they didn't do more with him. But that's all you could really do with Colossus. A mixed bag. I like it, but I mean, I wish it would have just been fist that punch or something like that. Next up, we're going to have Iceman, or Icemen, because there were two versions of him. There was the changes color and freezer. So the first version here, basically, you can see a little bit, make a little bit of it out, the white parts here, with an ice cube, and I don't have one to show you. It would be a little bit more emphasized, and you would see those components. He's a little bit more clear than the other version I'm going to show you. And then he has his little ice surfboard here. So the second version of Iceman, it's the same card back, but it just says power slide or something like that. This one's blue. This one does not change with ice or with heat, but what it does is you're supposed to just pour water into the base and it turns into an ice cube, and then you take that out and he could slide around on the ice cube. You could do that with the other one too. So it's not really a unique feature. They just sort of removed a feature and repackaged the character with this blue material that instead of the clear version of Iceman. So you kind of got gypped. This one had just a little bit less capability to it than the other one, but still two cool figures nonetheless. He was also available in a 4-pack, so there's two ways you could have got him. But this is Iceman, so we got Bobby Drake in the line there as well. After that, we're going to skip around. We're going to have Banshee, who came a little bit later in the series. Banshee here, his primary ability is he has the wings he could tuck down, and they pop out when you squeeze the legs or something. Oh, yeah, I'm not really sure. Let's see what it says here. No, you just kind of take them out. So you open them, you put them down, you open them, that's it. And then he has his scream. So let me see if I can do this. Yep, you just blow into it. It's a little whistle. So, yep, whistle scream. That's all he does. So Banshee, I used to be better at it, or maybe it's just got dust in it, but it would make a little whistle, and that's basically all he does is his Banshee scream. That was how he would scream, and that was what would make him float the fly. So that kind of made sense with the character. So we have our Banshee over there. And next up, I don't have the card back for it, but I want to cover him really quick, and it's Strong Guy. So Strong Guy from X Factor is one of the two X Factor characters that they made in the line. They did do Havoc and Polaris later, but they weren't part of the Uncanny X-Men line. They were part of like Mutant Genesis or something else. Basically, you'd turn his waist and he'd punch. He's a strong guy. His name kind of says it all. So this is basically this character. I think they got around to Multiple Man too, but not in this line. So it was weird that they just picked him. He's a fun kind of look, so I get that. It would sell toys. We have Random here, and it was a random act to include this guy in the line. He was in a couple episodes. He was in that Talon Cyclops one too, and again, he was on Asteroid M. Wasn't really a bad guy, wasn't really a good guy, was just a mutant. So he's got some tattoos on his arms here, but his real feature is his little missile launching hand. So this one will work, whereas you push it in, if you got it in the right way, and then it would just kind of fly out. This thing is old. It's not going to work the best, but yeah, there it goes. It would fly out, and then you have other missiles up here that are being in the holders that you could replace it with, and he could keep shooting out of these little missile blasting barbs that he has in his arm. So that was basically Random, a bit of a random character. For sure, but you know, nonetheless fun to include in the line. Next we have Forge. Forge was in a bunch of episodes. We first saw him introduced with Bishop in the Future series, and then we saw him as part of the X Factor later on. Now Forge's only capability here is his quick draw, which he overdraws it. You can see a translucent leg here, just like he had in the series, the robot parts, and in the arm here. But you get a little bit more backstory on that in the episode with that virus that kind of took over Cameron Hodge and whatnot. But yeah, that is essentially Forge. And if I'm mentioning Forge, I don't have the card back for it, but I have Bishop. Bishop in line kind of pairs well with him, our time traveler here. And again, his capability is he has this sort of, let's see here, this ability to reload his gun that flips around. So I think it's, you lock the arm in place, yeah, there he goes, and it snaps back into place. Like, it was not the greatest ability, but kind of cool. At the time, it was very cool to see him flick the gun around. And that was basically Bishop. So he had two guns here. Only one hand did something, but you could see all the little designs, the scars on his face. So for the time, really nice figure. Really liked how that one turned out. This entire line, I gotta say, it was just really fun. And it's definitely a huge bit of work to collect it, but it was great. Longshot from the Mojo episode. Longshot was the star of the show. He came back in another episode, and basically he comes with a couple of knives here, and you're able to lift his hand. At least I used to be able to. Oh, I'm sorry. You bring it down and then you let it go. Whoop, that one went across the room. So he definitely has his flick ability still for the knives, but that's all he came with. He has his little bandolier on, and I don't think he has a signature gold eye, but you know, he looks pretty close to how he did on the show. So kind of nice that they included this guy. You compare with your Mojo, with your Spiral, and you could sort of build out that whole episode. Here's another one that's kind of random too, and Kylun. Kylun wasn't on the show. Not really familiar with this character, not sure why they included him. He has two swords, as you can see on the back here, and I think you just kind of turn his waist, and yeah, his hands, and then his skirt keeps falling off. That's the most frustrating thing about him. I could never keep that thing on. It's just connected by 2 points in the front, and it just kind of falls off all the time. But yeah, you just kind of turn his waist, and he has these swords he just kind of flicks around. Not the coolest character. I don't get why they included them in here, but like with the villains, there's some characters they just kind of threw in that make no sense to me. But he's part of the line, so we're covering him here. All right, we're going to get to the Starjammers now. So we're going to start with Chod, or Chod. I'm not really sure how to say that. Another character, kind of weird, because in the show, he used a laser rifle, but they decided not to give him a gun, but they give one to other characters in the line. So this guy here, you can see his arms kind of lifted, and then you push the button and they slam down. That's really it. And he's got this weird little monkey thing he didn't have in the show either. But that was it. They make him look like a bad guy. He's not. He's one of the Starjammers. So it's just kind of odd. The other Starjammer we're going to have here is Raza, who was sort of the first mate. So he actually comes with more accurate accessories. He's got his gun and his sword here. And I forget how this guy works. I'm going to look really... Oh, you just turn the hand up. So, yeah. You kind of put the hand up here, and it makes the other hand turn or something like that. You can control it. It doesn't work the best, but like one arm controls the other or something. So you can make one arm make the other one point, and yeah, it's seen better days, but it used to swashbuckle a little bit more, and I might be doing it wrong. but that's essentially Vraza, and that's his little capability of swashbuckling. Of course, we have Corsair, the captain of the Starjammers. I don't have his pad here. He's got his little gun. He's got a sword on this side, and then he's got this little grappling hook pulley system I'm not going to set up that creates a zip line for the character. But he just came with a whole bunch of gadgets. You know, as we all know, Cyclops' father here. So kind of cool. They gave him all these little gadgets to round out the captain here and round out the crew. I think we're only missing one member, was the female member. Again, at the time, they didn't make a lot of female characters into these lines, so it kind of made sense that those are the ones that were getting left behind out of all of them. Next up, now since we're in the Phoenix Saga, you can see the logo changed a little bit on the card to Phoenix Saga. We're going to have Jean Grey as Phoenix, and this one had a battery you can change. Let's see, yeah, there we go. So you can see the light here went into her eyes and her hair a little bit. So very similar to the Dark Phoenix that we showed you last week, except this one is the Phoenix. So it's not the dark color, so they just repainted that from this line. This was 94, this was toward the end of the line. Also in this line is going to be Gladiator. Here's another guy with a punch, just like Rogue. This one, let's see if I get it to work. Here we go. Here we go. He just kind of punches out. So he was super strong. That was his thing. So that's Gladiator there. Not a bad looking figure with the mohawk and the cape and everything. A lot going on here. I don't have the card back for it, but Warstar is another one here. That was one of the Guardians in that council along with Gladiator. Just like Tusk, his only ability is this little panel opens and then a little guy pops out. A little pilot or something for this thing that also attacks people. A very tiny little version of them, and that's inside. And there were multiples of these, so you could, I guess, troop build them and get a couple of them. But not a bad looking figure, kind of a metallic look to it. It's got that nice visor on the front there. Very sturdy looking character, but he was one of the, I guess, the bodyguards or whatever they were, the Royal Guards. So there was just the two of them. They're the only ones they made. There were other ones, obviously they didn't make them. So that's mostly rounding out the Phoenix Saga there. I know I got other X-Men to get back to. I missed a couple, but I was kind of being intentional in that. So the next one I'm gonna get up is Hank McCoy, and that's gonna be Beast. Kind of a fun figure, and I'll show you why. So his only accessory was this bar that came with a suction cup. So you could stick it onto something and then have him hold it so he could hang off of it. But he has this flip ability, which is really cool. So you kind of tuck him down. Let's see if I get this to work. And then you kind of roll. Whoop. It can be tricky to get him into it. But you tuck him down and then you kind of roll this. Eventually you get him to flip over by rolling this thing around, and then you reset it. Not the best at it, but it is a nice little ability because he's got these spring-loaded legs. And then if you get it just right without the feet slipping, then you can get him to do his full flip. Yeah, almost got it there. Full flip. So kind of a cool figure. That was Beast at the time. Looks great on your Blackbird, but we'll get to that when we get to the vehicles. Next up, we got two versions of Storm. Now, Storm here originally came out in this black costume, mimicking the pad. But later on the same pad, we got the silver costume, which looked a lot closer to the show. There was eventually a white version released when they did the animated line, which was the same costume, just white. This one still works. You can see the glow in there. But again, the batteries are embedded, so I can't change it. She has this lightning bolt. I think this was taken from Thor, from the Marvel Superheroes line. We'll check that out when we get to Thor in a couple months. And this one looks more closer to the show. I don't know why I didn't go with a cape. There were these weird little circles, which are very annoying and don't really stay behind her like a cape. But it kind of drapes around and makes the figure a little different. I'm not sure why they went with this design, but it kind of gives the look of a cape without actually being a cape. So very annoying, but that is Storm. Next up, we're getting toward the end here. Don't worry. We have Cyclops. Cyclops had a couple versions. His first version was this, which was his original costume. The visor does not work anymore. You can't change the battery in it. He just puts his hands in this little beam thing. I don't know what it is. But we got a second version on the same card back, and we saw this version most recently in X-Men 97 when they brought up this costume again. This also does not light up. So kind of cool there. Same little beam device, just a complete different costume change. And you could actually make out the X on the costume that they just kind of painted over and just changed the color scheme. So no change at all to the design of the character at this point. They just kind of did a straight repaint. But they did change the design of the character when they went with Cyclops version 2, which looked exactly like his on-screen appearance. A little bit bigger here. He's got this weird little backpack that has like a satellite dish in it and something else, and then he comes with a gun, because why not? Because of course we see Cyclops using a gun all the time. But this one, the beam lights up and the battery is replaceable, so you can bring this guy back to life. So I'm glad they started doing more replaceable batteries later on in the lines, because it's great to be able to still have these characters 30 years later and still use the functionality on them. So I don't know why they didn't do that to begin with all of them, but it's a shame. But we still are able to salvage some of them. All right, we've saved the best for last. We're going to do our Wolverines now. There were several versions of Wolverine. So we have our classic comics color brown suit Wolverine here. He came with this weird samurai sword that doesn't like to stay in his hand. But what he had, with not a lot of the other ones had, was the retractable claws. So the claws would go into his arm like this, and then you would be able to, boom, pop him out and have him right there. His mask also came off. So you had multiple things you could do with him. This is one of my favorite Wolverines, with the mask here, with the samurai sword, which I don't fully understand. Next, we have version 2. I don't have the card back for version 2. Version 2 is the most popular, and that is going to be this yellow spandex Wolverine. Now, this one did not have retractable claws. You can push them in and they immediately pushed out. So I guess they retracted, I mean, they didn't lock into place. His only ability was you twist them back and forth, and he has his claws. He had his, full ensemble here, like in the show, and he had an Uzi. Like I said, they just randomly added guns to some characters. He didn't really need an accessory. He was awesome. So that was in there. So then we have Wolverine 3rd edition. All right. So looks nothing like the card back. Here we go. He's wearing that outfit I talked about, that morph hat on there. So again, he has the same kind of claws as the version 2. Comes with the Uzi like version 2. But this one has different, feet design here, different chest design, and different belt than we saw in version 2 there, and he doesn't have a cowl on this time. So that was all version 3. Version 3, not as popular. I know Hasbro did a release of him recently on this card back, but that is your version 3. 4th edition was Weapon X Wolverine. Now, he came in 3 colors. I have the red one here, because I think the red one was the most accurate to the show. This was the KB version. There was a green one and there was a silver one. I think the silver one being the rarest. I actually have a green one over here. I just never got around to opening them. So you can see the green one here in the package still. And then we have the silver one I don't have. It's just this with silver accents and silver lines. But essentially you could take off his helmet and you can see his face, and his apparatus would come off. And it was just him with the claws on there and his Weapon X design. After that, we have the 5th edition, which was the Wolverine Spy. So what do you do for a guy that has claws for hands? You give him a ton of knives. And that's what this figure did, is it added a lot of knives to the character. I gotta get him, there's still more over here. So you could basically kit him out with every knife imaginable, and then everything that you couldn't fit into his hands, you then ended up putting into one of his holsters that were either on his arm, on his leg, basically everywhere. So you see you can stick the blades there, you can stick a blade over here on this leg, and you can stick a blade on this leg on the bottom, you can stick a blade on this leg at the top, so you could have him just holding a ton of knives. So that was his thing. He could have a little twist here, he had his claws out, he had this little mask that could pivot away. This was the version that we saw in the show. There were other versions. I think this was the KB one, there was the green one, and I think there was one other one that might have been silver as well. But yeah, there were very different variants of this, but this was essentially the character, just a ton of knives. The next one up, the 6th edition, and that was Albert with the robotic Wolverine. So he just basically came like this, and you could switch out his arms for these claw arms and take them out of here, and that's basically the only thing that the character did, was allowed you to switch the arms out. I think if you squeezed the legs or something, yeah, everything blew off of him, and he lost his arms and he lost his lost his just his arms basically. So you could switch those out however you wanted to put them in here and you know, make him the robot. There was one other version of him that came in the metallic pack. So you can see he's got a slightly more metallic hue to him on the body, but that's really it. It's essentially the same character, same functionality. They just added that little metallic aspect to it, which I did with a couple figures in the line there. Next up, we have the 7th edition, one of my favorite versions, and that's going to be Wolverine Street Clothes. So you see him right here, and he basically just has the claws that go up into the arm and they come out. He's wearing that jacket that we know and love, that we've seen from the show, that we see in several episodes. That's really it. I think his arms, yeah, his arms kind of twist around when you twist his body, but that is really it. Goes well with the Wolverine truck or Jeep. We'll see that later on. 8th edition. I think we're just about done here. 8th edition was Wolverine in his spacesuit from the Phoenix Saga. So you can see the Phoenix Saga right here. And he has a helmet. Helmet comes off. We've seen a couple of characters had spacesuits, but he's the only one to actually get the figure. So the claws go in and out, which you wouldn't want them coming out of a spacesuit because you puncture it, but that is it. There was a different version of this that came in a 4-pack, and that was with the Dark Phoenix one, and this one came with silver instead of the gold version of the spacesuit. So that is it for the Wolverine there. Bonus, 9th edition. People are probably wondering, wait a minute, there's only 8 versions of Wolverine. There was a 9th one. It's going to be version 2 with the cowl off and a metallic look to him. And I bet you're thinking that that's got to be a kit bash or something because you've never seen that figure before. Well, it's not a kit bash, as you can see the head. Yep, the head pivots there, so it's not just glued on or something like this. This was a special version that came with some versions of the Blackbird that included a bonus figure. You can see it right here is a picture of the packaging. That's how I got this one. He came with the Blackbird. This is the only way you could get the cowl off version of Wolverine in his classic X-Men outfit from the animated series, was with that Blackbird purchase. So fun little Wolverine, tough to track down if you're just trying to find him loose. You're probably going to have to buy him with that Blackbird and spend a ton of money. But yeah, that was basically it. I mean, he's just kind of the same Wolverine, just shiny, and they gave him the head. It's actually, it looks very similar to the head from the 3rd version, so it might just be that head. But that's what they included there. So that covers all the X-Men in the Uncanny X-Men line. We're going to take a look at just a few X-Force figures that are from the animated series that are not part of the immediate X-Men line. All right, we're about to make a crowded space even more crowded. First, we're going to start with Cable. Cable was in several episodes, but he's in the X-Force line, not in the Uncanny X-Men line, ran congruently to it. In the first wave here, his capability is Karate Chop, because we all know Cable loves to Karate Chop. He's got his silver arm, he's got this little cannon that rotates. There were several versions of Cable. This is the one that I think is more closer to what we saw on screen there. Also, the only other character that I recall in the series that said, my name is so-and-so, remember it, like Gambit did. He said it to Apocalypse in a couple episodes before Gambit said that. So I want to say he was the original to take that message there. Okay, running in the later version of the X-Force line, when we got this different change in card back, was Domino. She was in the Geonosis episode. She just has these guns where you put the rockets in and she can fire them. She looks very close to her, the animated series look. So I just wanted to mention her in here, but she was outside of that production run of this to 94. Next up, we have Deadpool. Deadpool was actually briefly in the series. Morph turned into him. So the character himself wasn't in the series, but he did get a mention as Morph showed him here. He has his swords that come out of his back here, and then he has baby knife in his left hand. It just kind of retracts and comes out, baby knife. So that's really it. But fun character to have in the line here. He had a couple of variants of him, but that is Deadpool there. We also have Cannonball, who made a very brief appearance, and I think one of the Mojo episodes, we just see him flipping through the channel. Basically, you just launch him off of this platform, and that's really all there is to Cannonball. I don't want to show any more there. Quark had an appearance in one of the Mojo episodes. He was a bounty hunter that came in to hunt Longshot. He has his guns here, and you just hit the button, and I think he just raises them, and that's really it, the stick him up look. So he looks exactly like he did in the episode, so I think that's kind of cool that they kept that there. Again, a weird random background character they didn't need. We have Warpath appeared in a couple episodes, including that first Geonosis episode, and he just kind of twists and punches. He came with a gun because why not? They just randomly included guns with characters. And then the last one I want to include here is Maverick. Now, what I forgot to do is show you that he actually was in the 90 to 94 Uncanny X-Men line. He came as a metallic figure in a 2-pack. I forget, I think he might have came with Trevor Fitzroy. Anyway, this is what he did. He lifted the gun and he brought it up. So this is the Uncanny X-Men version. And then here is the version that later ran in the X-Force line with the accurate colors to the animated series. Same ability with the arm here, although this one did not work as well. As you can see, here we go. For some reason it locks back more and then it pulls out. So he also came with Cable's gun for some reason. His little twisting repeater gun. So they made him later in that X-Force line, and I think 95 is when this came out. But this was the version that came out before that in the X-Men line in the KB exclusive. It was the only way you could get Maverick, and he came at the time as this gold and silver version of Maverick instead of the blue version that we got later on. So he was in the Uncanny X-Men line, and he was not, but he was the more accurate version. So that is it. That is all the characters from the Uncanny X-Men line and a couple from the X-Force line that appeared on the animated series that I just wanted to share with you. Well, I hope you enjoyed that segment. I know that was a lot coming at you really fast, even though it took a while because there were just so many. I really wanted to cover the superheroes with the longest segment of the 3 parts I want to show you because there were just simply more. The villains I always think are cooler, but they just made more of the superheroes because kids love to buy the hero toys. Everyone wants to be the hero because the heroes always win. So they sold a ton of hero characters. As you can see, they had 8 versions of Wolverine. I mean, oh my God. A ton of characters, tons of different versions, repaints, changes, variants, as you saw. So again, this was the Uncanny X-Men line from Toy Biz that ran from 90 to 94. The card backs looked like this. Subsequent to that, you had Mutant Genesis, you had other card backs from the X-Force, etc. that were not that. So the X-Force card backs, as you saw, looked more like this, and they changed sort of shape and color scheme over time. But this is what we were focusing on for this segment. So these characters are all sort of on this kind of card back over time. So that's how you got them, with the exception of the 2-pack Maverick here, who came on his own unique card back. So that really kind of captures the whole look. So that's it. That is our look at all the figures from the Toy Biz line. We'll count the Sentinel as a playset, and we already took a look at that. So next time we are going to check out the vehicles and the playsets associated with this line that ran from 90 to 94, capturing all those. And we'll throw a bonus one in from 95 because I think it's just so integral to the show that we need to include it. So tune back for more Marvel as we continue our Marvel month. It's already in the 85th anniversary, and we'll have more Marvel throughout the year. We're going to look at Fantastic Four next month and the Marvel superheroes in November. So that is all for this time. Like, subscribe, and follow. See you guys next time.